Hello, hello, hello. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Peace and power and elevation be to all the beautiful people out there. Today is Tuesday, August the 10th of 2021. This your girl Tiffany come through here live in effect. So today I'm still on the West African series. All right. So today I'm going to get on the topic about the Igbo people and the Igbo in the diaspora. So one of the reasons why I'm speaking on this because the Igbo people were a part of the a part of the transatlantic slave trade, and by them being a part of the transatlantic slave trade, their history is very prominent. Now, I know a lot of us done took a DNA test, and have you noticed that you got a lot of Nigerian ancestry? Have you ever wondered why? Well, one of the reasons why is because of the Yoruba and the Igbo people. Those are two main reasons. Now, there could be other multiple tribes that came up out of Nigeria, but those main two tribes is the Yoruba tribe and the Igbo tribe. So the Igbo, I know people done heard about the Ebola Landing, right? Anyways, I just wanted to go in and share some information about the Igbo people and the Igbo tribe and how they came here to America and whatnot. As a matter of fact, I also got some information about those. There's an Igbo village in Staten, Virginia. So I'm going to show some information. All right. Okay. So many of us didn't think that there were those who came over here bringing their culture to America. And there was those ancestors that did. They retained their culture. However, they blend their culture within the European culture, which is now what we practice today. And we don't realize that. We don't realize that we carry on a lot of those African tradition that is mixed with this European culture or creolized. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is get into the Igbo American. All right. Got my screen going right there. So who was the Igbo Americans? So the Igbo Americans or Americans of Igbo ancestry are residents of the United States who identify as having Igbo ancestry from modern day Nigeria. There are primarily two classes of people with Igbo ancestry in the United States. Those whose ancestors were taken from Ebola Land, which I'm going to go into as a result of the transatlantic slave trade before the 20th century, and those who immigrated to from the 20th century onwards, partly as a result of the Nigerian Civil War in the 1960s and economic instability in Nigeria. Igbo people prior to the American Civil War were brought to the United States by force from their hinterland homes on the Bight of Biafra and shipped by Europeans to North America between the 17th and the 19th centuries. All right, so let's look at the Ebola Land. What is the Ebola Land? The Ebola Land, also known as Southeastern Nigeria, but extends to Southern Nigeria, is the indigenous homeland of the Igbo people. It is a cultural and common linguistic region in Southern Nigeria. Geographically, it is divided by the Lower Niger River into section, eastern, the larger of the two, and western one. Its population is characterized by the diverse Igbo culture and the speakers of equally diverse Igbo languages. Okay. Politically, Igbo land is divided into several southern Nigerian states. Culturally, it has included several subgroupings, including the Inoma, the Ingwa, the Aro, the Iza, the Ibiku, the Huhu, the Ikure, the Ogba, the Ouma, how was it Ohapa, the Oyibo, the Mbaze, and the Ikipe. All right, so just to stop there. All right, so that's the Ebola Land. So the Ebola Land stretches all the way out to southeastern Nigeria, but it goes into the southern part of Nigeria. And I also think that the Yorubas stretched out to southwestern Nigeria as well. So yeah, but Ebola Land is the southern eastern part of Nigeria. Okay. Now let's look into the Igbo people real fast. So who's the Igbo people? The Igbo people are a meta ethnicity native to present-day South Central and Southeastern Nigeria. The large ethnic Igbo population are found in Cameroon, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea, as well as outside Africa. There has been much speculation about the origins of the Igbo people, as it is unknown how exactly the group came to form. Geographically, the Igbo homeland is divided into unequal sections by the Niger River. As I mentioned, the eastern part and the western section. And also say the Igbo language is a part of the Niger-Congo language family. It is divided into numerous regional dialects and somewhat mutually intelligible with the larger Igbo cluster. The Igbo homeland straddles the lower Niger River east and south of Edo and Edomad groups and west of the Ibibod cluster. All right, so then goes on to say before the period of the British colonial rule in the 20th century, the Igbo were a politically fragmented group with a number of centralized chiefdoms such as Nre, Oro Confederacy, Akbar, and Onotisha. Frederick Longar introduced a system of warrant chiefs. Unaffected by the Fulani War and the resulting spread of Islam in Nigeria in the 19th century, they became overwhelmingly Christian under colonization. In the wake of decolonization, the Igbo developed a strong sense of ethnic identity. During the Nigerian Civil War of 1967 and 1970, the Igbo territory succeeded as the short-lived Republic of Biafra. The movement of the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, a sedentary organization formed in 1999, continued a nonviolent struggle for an independent Igbo state. So as you can see, the Igbo people is not just only in the Nigeria region, but they also can be found in Cameroon, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea. Okay. So what does it mean by meta-ethnicity? It's a relatively recent term or neologism occasionally used in academic literature, public discourse, or on ethnic study. It describes a level of commonality that is wider and more general than ethnicity, but does not necessarily correspond to or may actually transcend nation or nationality. In colloquial discourse, it usually signifies a larger group of related ethnic groups who identify with each other. All right, so again, they have a large group in other places, a very large population. So let's take a look at the history real fast. All right, so I ain't gonna go into too much about the history, but as you can see, this picture right here is the bronze from the 9th century town of Ebo Ukwu at the British Museum. See, the British folks always taking shit. So that's a picture of the Igbo man with scarification, known as Ichi. Okay. And then that's the Igbo children with a dead Cross River gorilla at Asaba, Nigeria in 1906. Okay. All right, so let's just go and look at the prehistory. It says the Ebola languages form a cluster within the Volta-Niger phylum, most likely grouped with Ubroid and Edoid. The greatest differentiation with the Ebola group is between the Epidae and the rest. Williamson argued that based on this pattern, Proto-Eboid migration would have moved down the Niger from a northern area in the savannah and first settled close to the delta, with a secondary center of Igbo proper more to the north in the Aqua area. Genetic studies have shown the Igbo to cluster more closely with other Niger Congo speaking people. The predominant Y chromosomal haplogroup is E1B1A1-M2. And it's so funny people talk about E1B1A, especially those Hebrew Israelites. But let's continue. Pottery dated from around 3000 to 2500 BC, showing similarity with later Igbo work, was found at Nsukka and Afikpo regions of Igbo land in the 1970s, along with the pottery and tools at nearby Ibagwa. The tradition of the Umuri clan have as their source the Anambra Valley in the 1970s. The Uri, Ukigwe, Olu, Agu, Adi, and Agua division were determined to constitute an Igbo heartland from the linguistics and cultural evidence. In the Nsukka region of Igbo land, evidence of early iron smelting has been excavated dating to 750 BC at the site of Opi and 2000 BC at the site of Leji. All right, so it talks about Inri Kingdom. So I'm gonna read a little bit about this. It says the Inri people of Igbo land have a creation myth, which is one of the many creation myths that exist in various parts of Igbo land. The Niri and Ugulari people are in the territory of Umuri clan, who trace their lineage back to the patriarchal king figure Iri. Iri's origin are unclear, though he has been described as a sky being sent by Chiku, who has been characterized as having first given societal order to the people of Inabra. The historian Elizabeth Elo Ishechi says Iri and Uguri and part of the Umuri clan are a cluster of Igbo village groups, which traces its origin to a sky being called Iri. All right. All right then. So let's go into the transatlantic slave trade. So that's the focus here. All right. So the transatlantic slave trade in the diaspora. Okay. And it says Chambers 2002 argues that many of the slaves taken from the Bight of Bafra across the Middle Passage would have been Igbo. These slaves were usually sold to the Europeans by Arrow Confederacy, who kidnapped or bought slaves from Igbo villages in the hinterland. Igbo slaves may have not been victims of slave raiding wars or expedition, but perhaps debtors or Igbo people who committed within their community alleged crimes. With the goal for freedom, enslaved Igbo people were known to European planters as being rebellious and having a high rate of suicide to escape slavery. There is evidence that traders saw Igbo women. Igbo women were paired with Koromati, a Khan, which is a Khan group of men, to subdue the men because of the belief that women were bound to their firstborn son's birthplace. And it says, it is alleged that European slave traders were fairly well informed about various African ethnicity, leading to slavers targeting certain ethnic group, which plantation owners preferred. Particular desired ethnic groups consequently became fairly concentrated in certain parts of the Americas. The Igbo were dispersed to colonies such as Jamaica, Cuba, Saint Dominique, which is now Haiti, Barbados, Colonial America, which is United States of America, Belize, and Trinidad and Tobago, among others. Elements of Igbo culture can be still found in these places. For example, in Jamaica, Potois, the Igbo word unu, meaning you, pearl, is still used. Red Igbo or red Igbo described as a black person with fair or yellowish skin. This term had originated from the reported prevalence of these skin tones among the Igbo, but Eastern Nigerian influences may not be strictly Igbo. The word bim, a colloquial term for Barbados, was commonly used among enslaved Barbadians or Bajan. This word is said to have derived from bing in the Igbo language, meaning my place or people, but may have other origins. See Barbados etymology. Okay. It says a section of Belize City was named Igbo Town after its Igbo inhabitant. In the United States, the Igbo were imported to Chesapeake Bay colonies and states of Maryland and Virginia, where they constituted the largest groups of African. Since the late 20th century, a wave of Nigerian immigrants, mostly English and Igbo speaking, have settled in Maryland, attracting to its strong professional job market. They were also imported to the southern borders of Georgia and South Carolina, considered the low country and where Gullah culture still preserves African tradition of its ancestors. Today, there is an area called Ebola Landing, where a group of Igbo had tried to drown themselves rather than become slaves when they disembarked the slave ship. All right, so let's look into the Ebola Landing real fast. See, it's a lot of information about the Igbo people. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me pull up the picture. Right. So this picture right here represents the Ebola Landing. Okay. That's the picture that represents the Ebola Landing. So now what is the Ebola Landing? So Ebola Landing. Ebola Landing is a historic site at Dunbar Creek on St. Simon Island, Glenn County, Georgia. It was the setting of a mass suicide in 1803 by captive Igbo people who had taken control of their slave ship and refused to submit to slavery in the United States. The event's moral value as a story of resistance towards slavery has symbolic importance in African American folklore and literary history. All right. So it goes in to talk about the history of what took place. So in May of 1803, a shipload of captive West Africans, upon surviving the Middle Passage, were landed by U.S. paid captors in Savannah by a slave ship to be auctioned off at one of the local slave markets. The ship's enslaved passengers included a number of Igbo people from what is now Nigeria. The Igbo were known by planters and slaves of the American South for being fiercely independent and resistant to chattel slavery. The group of 75 enslaved Igbo were brought by agents of John Cooper and Thomas Spalding for forced labor on their plantation in St. Simon's Island for $100 each. The chained enslaved people were packed under the deck of a small vessel named the schooner York to be shipped to the island. Other sources say the voyage took place aboard the Morova. During this voyage, the Igbo slaves rose up in rebellion, taking control of the ship and drowning their captors in the process, causing the grounding of Morova in Dunkbar Creek at the site now locally known as Ebola Landing. The following sequence of events is unclear, as there are several versions of the revolt's development, some of which are considered mythological. Apparently, the Africans went ashore and subsequently, under the direction of a high Igbo chief among them, walked in unison into the creek, singing in the Igbo language, "The water spring brought us here. The water spirit brought us here. The water spirit will take us home." They thereby accepted the protection of their god Chiku or Chikwu and death over the alternative of slavery. Roswell King, a white overseer on nearby Pierce Butler Plantation, which is Butler Island Plantation, wrote one of the few contemporary accounts of the incident, which states that soon as the Igbo landed on the St. Simon's Island, they took to swamp, dying by suicide by walking into Dunbar Creek. A 19th century account of the event identifies the captain by the surname Patterson and names Roswell King as the person who recovered the bodies of the drowned. A letter describing the event, written by Savannah slave dealer William Mann, states that the Igbo walked into the marsh where 10 to 12 drowned, where some were savaged by bounty hunters who received $10 a head from Spalding and Cooper. According to some sources, survivors of the Igbo rebellion were taken to Cannon's Point on St. Simon Island and Sapio Island. So Sapio Island and St. Simon Island is in Georgia. Okay. All right. So not too long ago, I was in Savannah, and I had went to the beach out there. I forgot the name of the beach I went to, but it's about 20 minutes away from the city of Savannah, right? But that beach was known to have slaves. As a matter of fact, with that beach, they in that beach. Let me find out what's the name of the beach. I can't even remember the name of the beach that I went to in Savannah. But anyways, because I did a video about it, but the beach had that was like the slave holding spot. So Savannah was a slave holding area where they had all the slaves. You know, they would just hold the slaves from South Carolina, North Carolina area, and then send them to other places and stuff like that. But there was an area in Savannah where, you know, the slaves who had some type of infection, they will put them off in the specific area to keep them away from everybody else. Yep. But yeah, that's the history. If you guys get a chance, if anybody get a chance to come to Georgia, the best place to go is Savannah. As a matter of fact, Savannah was the capital of Georgia before Atlanta was. See, people don't know that. Yep. And trust and believe, Savannah got a beautiful history. It's a beautiful city. It's a lot of history, especially in the downtown area, because you'll learn that the downtown area was really built by the hands of those who were enslaved. Yep. It's beautiful. All right. So, anyways, let me go ahead and go back to the Igbo American. Okay, I remember the name of the beach that I went to was the Tybee Island. That's the name of Tybee Island, which is in Savannah. So I was in Tybee Island. Yep. It just popped into my head. All right, so I want to get to the part about Virginia. Okay, so there was a lot of slaves that were brought to Virginia first when we talk about the South before any other southern states. So Virginia held on to a lot of slaves at one point in time. Then South Carolina, North Carolina, then Georgia, then you had Florida, and all of them came along. All right. But let's go ahead and let's go down to where they talk about the Atlantic slave trade, right? And of course, it says the Igbo were affected heavily by the Atlantic slave trade in the 18th century. Enslaved Igbo were known for being rebellious and have high counts of suicide and defiance of slavery. In the United States, the Igbo were most numerous in the states of Maryland, consequently, where there is a predominant population of recent Igbo immigrants. In Virginia, so much of so that some historians have dominated colonial Virginia as Ebola Land. With a total of 37,000 Africans that arrived in Virginia from Calabar in the 18th century, 30,000 were Igbo, according to Douglas B. Chambers. The Frontier Culture Museum of Virginia estimates around 38% of captives taken to Virginia were from the Bight of Biafra. Igbo peoples constitute the majority of enslaved Africans in Maryland. Chambers have been quoted saying, "My research suggests that perhaps 60% of Black Americans have at least one Igbo ancestor." Now, that kind of gives you the answer as to why so many of us have a high concentration of Nigerian in us, right? Because those high concentration of Nigerian ancestry come from the Igbo people, as well as some other tribes like the Yoruba. But the main tribe out of Nigeria is the Igbo people, because the Igbo people made up the largest number of slaves in Virginia and Maryland area. And of course, you had those that escaped and went to elsewhere. So they left and went to other places, right? But they made up the large number. So that's why so many of us got so many Nigerian ancestry. So if you got Nigerian ancestry in you, especially if you have a high number, like at 46%, 50% or whatever, chances are you got an Igbo ancestor. You got an Igbo ancestor, or you have a Yoruba ancestor. Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. See, this is why we got to look far back. When we study about the history of slavery, it gets really deep, and there's a lot of information that we don't know and that we're unaware of. And some people say that culturally speaking, we're not Igbo or we're not Yoruba people. That may be true in some cases, but that's not so true, because you carry on some of the cultural tradition that was brought by these tribal people, that was brought by these ethnic groups when they came here to this country. You carry on those traditions, not all of them, but there's some tradition that come from the Igbo, from the Yoruba, from the Akan groups like the Ashanti and the Fonte, the Iwe, and all these different groups out there, the Wolof and whatnot. We carry on some of their tradition with us to this day. Virginia. Now look at this. Check this out. Virginia was the colony that took in the largest percent of Igbo slaves. Researchers such as David Ellis estimate between 30 to 45% of the imported slaves were from the Bight of Biafra. Of these slaves, 80% were likely Igbo. A so-called conservative estimate of the amount of Igbo taken to Virginia between 1698 and 1778 is placed at 25,000. Igbo concentration was especially high in the Tidewater and Piedmont regions of the Virginia interior. One of the reasons for this high number of Igbo slaves in Virginia was the domination of the Bight of Biafra region of Africa by Bristol and Liverpool English merchants who frequently brought Bight of Biafra slaves to British colonies. Virginia being one of these colonies, the high concentration of Igbo slaves in Virginia was contributed to further by neighboring states. Planters in South Carolina and Georgia looked down on Igbo slaves because many were rebellious. Because of this, the majority of Igbo slaves were taken and sold to Virginian planters. Again, let's look at this part again. Hold on. Let me highlight this part. It says, what planters in South Carolina and Georgia looked down on Igbo slaves. Why did they look down on them? Because they were too rebellious. So the Igbo was one of those tribes that they would fight back. They weren't very submissive. They was gonna put up a fight, even if that means that they was gonna commit suicide. They were some warrior-like groups. So that lets you know that the Igbo people were warrior-like groups. They had warrior-like mentality. They weren't with that shit. They was gonna put up a fight to the very end, or till they couldn't fight no more. That's how it was. Ever wonder, well, how did the slave rebellion came about? So what group of African tribes brought about the slave rebellion? Well, your answer could probably be the Igbo, more than likely. When it came to slave rebellion, more than likely they were probably Igbo, because they are like warrior class like tribe. They not just gonna be submissive like that. They gonna put up a fight. Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. Some possible Igbo names were also found among slave records in Virginia. Names found in records such as Anika or Anike, Bichi, and Juba may originate respectively from the Igbo name Inika, meaning the mother is superior, and Mburichi, male members of the kingdom of Niri, and Juba, meaning yam barn. Some had their ethnicity added to their names, such as Igbo Sarah, plain Igbo. These hints of Igbo influence go along with cultural remnants pointing towards the Igbo present in Virginia, one of which is the use of the Igbo drum in music. The Igbo present in Virginia also brought new practices such as the cultivation of okra, a plant whose name derived from the Igbo language. Slaves in Virginia relied on sweet potato, which is argued by Douglas Chamber to be an indication of a substitute for yam, the Igbo staple crop. Now, Kentucky, in the state of Kentucky, which was carved out of the colony of Virginia, had received many of Virginia's slave driver and slaves as people started migrating westward. These migrations spread out the population of African slaves in America, including Igbo slaves. Here, the Igbo population had already become heavily creolized alongside other African ethnicities that were taken in significant numbers to America. We get somewhere. Now let's look at the culture. Okay. So the culture, African cultures were heavily suppressed in the American slave era. The plantation and slave owners made sure to suppress African cultures through intimidation and torture, stripping away slaves' names and heritage. As expected, Igbo culture faced the same oppression. However, some cultural remnants of Igbo origin was found and can still be found in the United States. As expected, Igbo culture faced the same oppression. However, some cultural remnants of Igbo origin was found and still can be found in the United States. But you ain't got no African culture. Okay. But you ain't using African. Okay. Most of these cultural remnants can be found in music and entertainment. Wait a minute. Say that again. Music and entertainment. Igbo culture manifested in America through the Jankunu festival that once took residence in black slave population in Virginia. This masquerade bears similarity with the masking tradition of the Okonko secret society who still operate in the Igbo hinterland. The maskers wore horns, which further show similarity to Igbo culture and the Ikinga deity. Heavily African influenced American music genres such as jazz and ragtime. Jazz and ragtime. Let me continue. All right, and it stems from a mix of African cultures that creolized in Americas. Although these genres could be described as a mix, there are elements of American music that has specific origin and Igbo instruments such as the Igbo drum. The Igbo OP flute is similar to the drum and fife tradition. The novel Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe follows the story of Okongwu, an Igbo leader and warrior. The novel alludes to many of the customs and historical happenings of post-colonial Igbo culture. The book has been critically acclaimed, often being referenced as the archetypal African novel written for the Western world. All right, check this out. In the religion, the vast majority of Igbo America identify as Christian with a significant amount of adherence to Roman Catholicism and Protestantism, including Anglicanism, Seventh-day Adventists, Baptists, Methodists, and non-denominational churches, making up other denomination of Igbo Christians. Let me see. Somebody said, Sister Tiffany French bringing the fire. This is the most unrated show on YouTube. All education, no drama. Thank you. I appreciate that, brother Satavo. I really do appreciate that a lot. That's what I try to do. I try to make sure that I bring information that is valuable and that's educational. And I try to avoid as much drama. Because when you got drama, you'll bring a lot of distraction. So I try to avoid that as much as possible. But thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming in watching for real. All right, so Igbo landmarks in America, Igbo Village in Virginia, the Frontier Culture Museum of Virginia. As a matter of fact, I got information about the Igbo Village. I'm gonna show you, and I already went over the Ebola Landing. Okay, so it's got a list of notable people, famous people, people who play sports, celebrities, entertainers, musicians, who all are of Nigerian background. As a matter of fact, that's funny. I didn't even know Habib from Mobb Deep is Nigerian. That's interesting. Didn't even know that. Yeah, so they got Habib on here. There's so many of them. Sonny Digital, the producer. Oh, even Tyler, the creator, is of Nigerian background. Okay, so it's so many of them. And then, as a matter of fact, you have a strong population of Nigerian people here in America. You got the Nigerian and the Ghanaian people from Ghana, who have such a strong population here in America. So you'll find out even like what's the rapper? What's his name? Toby Inigwe. I think his name is Toby Inigwe from Houston. He's Nigerian. Wale is of Nigerian background. His parents from Nigeria. So it's so many of them. Yeah, and then the girl, what's her name? Chika, the rapper Chika. I think her name Chika. Yeah, she's Nigerian. Yeah. So it's so many people that's of Nigerian background or Ghanaian background. Even my favorite singer, Rotimi. Rotimi is Nigerian. And he's of the Yoruba and Igbo tribe mix. Yeah. Yeah. Rotimi is of Igbo and Yoruba tribe mix. Yeah, so it's so many of them out there. It is so many of them. Yep. And I think what's the actor's name? Idris. I think his name is Idris Abba. He's the most popular actor. He's from Britain. But yeah, even with Britain, British people, they have a lot of Nigerians or people who have parents that come from the Caribbean. Yep. So it's a strong population, man. I'm telling you. So again, if you ever want to know why you got so many Nigerian ancestry, that's your answer. This is one of your answers. One of your answers is the Igbo. The Igbo people. They make up that strong population. All right. So let me show you guys about the Igbo village that's in Virginia. All right, so introduction to the Igbo village in Staunton, Virginia. All right, so Igbo village in Staunton, Virginia, also known as the 1700 West African Farm exhibit, is a tangible recognition of the contribution of Igbo victims of the Atlantic slave trade to the development of Virginia and the greater American frontier culture. Enslaved Igbo men, women, and children who traveled by force from many specific locations in the hinterland of Ebola Land to North America helped to build what is now known as the United States. Let's talk about it. A great majority of those who came to Virginia boarded slave ships in the coastal town of Calabar, Bonny, and Brass. Evidently, one of the starting points of Igbo slave journey is the ancient cave temple complex in Arochukwu. Arochukwu traders supplied slaves to the market in Bende, which became the source of slave traveling directly from Bonny to Virginia. All right, so check this out. There's the picture over here to my right. You guys can see it. It says in 2002, after retracing the hinterland routes of Igbo slave journey in Abia State, I established a direct link between major markets and the points of embarkation. I realized the tourism potential of my research and approached the government of Abia State. The governor provided some financial support, and I worked with the staff of the Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism. The research team documented the cave in Agrochukwu and other sites and monuments in Abia State. All right, so it says in 2007, a team of cavers from the Hoffman Institution from Western Kentucky University went to explore how to protect the cave and nominate it for listing as UNESCO World Heritage Site. Working with the Nigerian National Commission on Museums and Monuments, the Arochukwu cave is now on the preliminary list of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. All right, so this is coming from the author of this article. The author name is Ticha Akuma Kalu Injuku. Okay. So check this out. It says, why Igbo? And the person, let me quote from the Frontier Culture website. An Igbo farmstead would represent the architectural patterns represent the areas from which the most number of slaves came to Virginia. The Igbo were greater in number than all the other enslaved Africans put together in Virginia in the 1700s, when tobacco was the mainstay of the colony's economy. Some estimates put the number of Igbo imported from the Bight of Biafra at 40% of all imported to West Virginia by 1775. Their numbers continue to increase to the point that the tobacco planters on the valley west of Blue Ridge replaced their white indentured servants with Igbo slave workers. The Igbo were among the first settlers. They were among those to cross the Cumberland Gap and open the gateway to the west. And check this out. He also said, in addition to making tobacco the mainstay of Virginian economy, the Igbo also provided the labor in the Black Belt that made cotton king. They have continued to contribute to nation building and culture in the United States. The Igbo farmstead in Staten is like the English, German, and Irish farmsteads, a tangible tribute to the Igbo settlers who helped to develop the frontier culture in America as well as in the territorial expansion of the United States. Well said. Well said. All right. So again, it's in Igbo Village. The Igbo Village is in Staten, Virginia. Staten, Virginia. Okay. And here's the author right here. Staten, Virginia. That's a nice little village right there. Oh yeah, Burna Boy, Wizkid, yes, so many of them, so many of them. There are great artists, yes, that come from the Nigeria area. And there's a sister that's from Nigeria. Oh, what's her name? There's a singer from Nigeria as well, Satavo. I don't know her name. You probably know who I'm talking about. Her name starts with a T, but she's from Nigeria as well. But yeah, they got a lot of great artists from Nigeria, a lot of them. And even the late hold on, let me put his name up. Even the late Fela. Yeah, Fela was a great artist as well. He was considered as the king of Afro beats. Yep. They got a lot of great artists, man. I might need to listen to some Afro beats when I get done doing this video. But what kills me about the people from Nigeria, not all of them, but there are those who are very conceited and they very narcissists. They are real narcissists. I'm just being straight up. They can be very narcissistic. Not all of them, but there's like a nice handful of them that are very narcissistic. And I never really understood that. I never understood that. I had one guy on my page, my Facebook page. He was so narcissistic, man. I ain't had to just let him go because he started making me mad because he was just saying all kinds of stuff about the people here in America. But it's like, buddy, while you talking your tribe and you talking about your tribe and all that, how we don't have no tribe, it's your tribe that was here in America. Your tribe, which is the Igbo people, made up a large population of those who was enslaved here in this country. So it's just a lot of arrogance. But again, I don't have anything against all of them because there's some good ones out there. There's some people who are very understanding, very educated, and very thorough, who I had the pleasure to communicate with. So, and then another problem I have is that I don't understand the whole issue with their electricity. Because like in their country, and especially in Lagos, they don't keep electricity around like 24/7 like we do here in America. Like, you know how electricity stay on. The only time the electricity cut off is if there was a heavy rain or if you didn't pay utility bill. But with them, if they was lucky, they get electricity for like maybe a month, and then the next month they don't get electricity. Then that following month they get it. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's the part that never made sense, and I never understood that issue. They do. They do. They have so much pride and arrogance, and it's like what? It's like, are you serious? Do you really know the history about America? Because if you did, you will humble yourself a little bit more. You wouldn't be so arrogant. But you know what? A lot of that has to do with colonialism too, because the European done took over Nigeria and Ghana, right? And so by the European coming over there colonizing and things like that, they had picked up a lot on the Europeans. They picked up on a lot of European cultural ways too. You know what I'm saying? So they kind of just got caught up on this dichotomy thing. But this is what happened. Just like we got caught up on it too. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we look at each other and we see each other as being foreign. You know what I mean? Because you're a long distance away from one another. It's like it seems like you don't have that connection, but the connection is there, but you just can't see it because of the perception that you were given. So they was given a perception about us, and we was given a perception about them here in America. But anyways, but it's all love though. I ain't got nothing against those people. All right, so I got some books, and you guys can check it out for yourself. All right, so the first book I'm gonna go to, and I'm just gonna probably read like the first chapter. This book right here is called Aluda Equiano in the Igbo World: History, Society, and Atlantic Diaspora Connection. Okay, so Aluda Equiano, I believe he was I know he was a slave, but I'm not sure. I think he was either Muslim. I can't exactly remember. But as a matter of fact, let me look up while I'm here. Let me look up Ulada Equiano, because he was a writer. But let's look up his information real fast before I go into the book. So who was Ulada Equiano? So Ulada Equiano was a writer, right? And an abolitionist from, according to his memoir, the Igbo region of the Kingdom of Benin. And enslaved as a child in Africa, he was taken to Caribbean and sold as a slave to a Royal Navy officer. He was sold twice more, but purchased his freedom in 1766. As a freeman in London, Equiano supported the British abolition movement. He was part of the Sons of Africa, an abolition group composed of Africans living in Britain, and he was active among leaders of the anti-slave trade movement in the 1780s. He published his autobiography, The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Oluda Equiano, in 1789, which depicted the horrors of slavery. It went through 9 editions of his life and helped gain passage of the British Slave Trade Act of 1807, which abolished the slave trade. Equiano married an English woman named Susanna Coleman in 1792, and they had 2 daughters. He died in 1797 in Westminster. Since the late 20th century, when his autobiography was published in a new edition, he has been increasingly studied by a range of scholars, including from his homeland. Yep. All right, so that's a story about Oluda Equiano. Oluda Equiano was a writer, right? That was the Igbo tribe, but he was brought into slavery, right? And he happened to go to London, and there he spent his life until the very end. So let's look at the book, which is called, again, here's the title, Olada Ikuyano in the Igbo World. Okay. By Chima J. Corday. All right, so let's see when this book was written. It was written in 2009, so it ain't been too long ago. Now let's look at the table of content. So from a glass darkly, Ulanda Ikuyano and the Igbo world. Okay. Encounters with Europe. And then let's look at the Atlantic Diaspora connection. Okay, so that's the main thing. So I'm going to page 287. All right, so nope. Hold on, let me. All right. Give me a second, you guys. Let me. All right. Here it is. I'm trying to find that chapter. Chapter 1. Look at the table of content. Okay, let me look at. All right, so here I am. Okay, so right here it says the Atlantic Diaspora Connection. Let's look at chapter 13. Igbo Identity in Africa and the Atlantic Diaspora. Chima J. Corey, chapter 13. All right. So it says, the enslavement of Africans, which gave birth to the African diaspora in the Atlantic world, scattered people who share the same cultural and linguistic affinity, but often lumped them together in identifiable regional patterns. A significant consequence of the pattern of trade was the emerge of identifiable ethnic and cultural patterns in the diaspora. Attention, therefore, has for a long time focused on the pattern of dispersion and the impact of the Atlantic slave trade on the emergence of new world cultures. This scholarly attention on the formation or otherwise of new identities in the new world has not merely added to our understanding of the genesis of contemporary American cultures, but it has also added to the rich historical tapestry of African identities, both in Africa and across the Atlantic. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's go down and see what else we can find here. Let's see. Now, it says enslaved Africans did not arrive at the New World as tabula rasa, yet they were ultimately influenced and were influenced by their new environment and condition in slavery, beginning with the process of enslavement in Africa, transportation through the Middle Passage, and inhumanity of slavery. Beyond the Atlantic, language and common worldview and religion may have been important markers of ethnic identities, but their race and color and common experience became more important from the Middle Passage. Although the experiences of enslaved Africans bonded them together, their differing African backgrounds elicit different responses to slavery, the emergent identities in the Americas, and the perception of American slavers to different African groups. It is important, therefore, to move beyond the homogenized and time anachronistic characterization of Africans in the Atlantic world to consider specific regional, cultural, and historical experiences of the enslaved African brought to the Americas. That is, what do we know of their African background in relation to their identity as redefined in the Atlantic world? According to Paul Lovejoy, sufficient information exists about individual and group taken as captive in the slave trade to allow historians to dispense with a generalized notion of a traditional African background for New World blacks, and accordingly to articulate the Africanness of the Black diaspora with ethnic and historical specificity. Indeed, the regional approach is critical to transcend the narrow conceptualization of African continuities in the New World and appreciate the call for more focus on the role of particular individuals and ethnic group in the emergence of the New World identity, continuities, and ethnic influence in the African diaspora. The individual backgrounds provide important new data, yet their stories are tangible to the society from which they came from. Indeed, from which they came, excuse me. Indeed, they emphasize the fruitfulness of understanding the interconnectedness of the histories of Africa and the colonial site where Africans and their descendants live on the other side of the Atlantic. All right. So, and I'm just going to stop right here, but again, you guys can check out the book. Goodness. Oh, goodness. Let me get back. Let me. All right. So, anyways, unfortunately, it's stuck. Let's see if I can. All right, so as you can see, that's the title of the book. It's called Aluda Equiano in the Igbo World. So you guys can check this book out. Let me kind of zoom back a little bit. All right, so you guys go ahead and check this book out. Whew. All right, so I have another one. It's called The Igbo in the Atlantic World. All right, so Igbo in the Atlantic World, the African Origins and Diaspora Destination, edited by Toyin Foya and Raphael Shinjok Injuku. Okay. All right, then. All right, so that's the introduction. Let's see. Let's see what year. This book was written in 2016. So it goes by different parts. So there's like 3 parts to this book. All right. So part 1, then you got part 2. All right, so let's look at part 2. Let's look at, let's see, what can I look at in part 2? Well, let's look at part 3, 13. The Igbo Diaspora in the Atlantic World, African Origins and New World Formation. Well, okay, let's see. Well, you know what? Nope. No. All right, so let's just go. Let's go to 99. Let's go to the Igbo and African background of the slave cargo of the Henrietta Marie. All right, so right here it says the Igbo and African backgrounds of the slave cargo of the Henrietta Marie. So right here it says the Henrietta Marie was an ill-fated slave ship that foundered off Key West in a storm in 1700 and sank after delivering its cargo of slaves to Jamaica. The wreck was uncovered by divers associated with the famous treasure hunter Mel Fisher while seeking Spanish treasure ships in 1972. Beginning in 1983, the wreck was carefully researched by underwater archaeologist David Moore at the Mel Fisher Maritime Heritage Museum and exposition of finds, including items such as child-sized leg irons, that began touring the United States in 1995, strongly invokes the slave trade, especially that originating from the Niger Delta. Most of the evidence from the cargo of the Henrietta Marie points to its African port of origin as being the New Calabar in the delta of the Niger River in modern Nigeria. The New Calabar was one of the most important ports of the region in the era of the slave trade, and one especially frequent by the 10%ers whose ships were not always welcome at the post that the Royal African Company controlled on the Gambia River, Gold, and Slave Coast, or where Similar coasts was exercised by the French, Dutch, or Danish African companies. There was never a permanent European presence in the river and its surrounding areas, since the environment saturated with malaria was considered fatal to the European, including the Portuguese, who were the first to visit the area. This point is of critical importance for historians, for it means that written documentation supplies very few details of New Calabar or its neighbor and resource and sources of supplies. Consequently, unlike the gold and slave coasts further west, the records of commercial contacts are sketchy, and the people writing the notes are poorly informed about the region. All right, so what I just read to you right there talk about the ship that that these Igbo people were on their way here to the Atlantic. So again, but you know that there were those who just was so rebellious, they was rocking the damn ships. It was like, look, we're not finna go for this. We're not gonna take it. So some of them was throwing captains off the ship. Some of them was tearing up the ship. Then there was those who just died on their way, so they weren't going for that. All right. So again, the name of the book is called Igbo in the Atlantic World, African Origins and Diaspora Destination, edited by Tonyin Fola and Raphael Kunjoke Njuku. So you guys check this book out if you want to check it out. Right? Oh boy. So I'm just going to put that book up there. You guys can check out the name of the book. All right. Make sure y'all take notes and look it up for yourselves. Okay. So that's all that I have for today. And I appreciate everybody that was watching, tuning in. I really do. So please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Check out the channel. Hit the notification bell. You can also, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Send the information to people who want to learn more. And that way they can be able to research things on their own. And again, till next time, this your girl Tiffany. And I'm logging off. And also, if you want to send something to my Cash App, there is the information at the bottom, $tip world. So if you want to send something to the Cash App and you appreciate what I'm doing, and you want, that's your way of saying, thank you or whatever, you can go ahead and do that as well. So that's the information at the bottom of the screen. If you want to send something, that'll be great. I really appreciate it a lot. But thank you, Centavo. Thank you, Centavo. Maybe one day I can get you on here. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for tuning in and always being very supportive. I really do. I really appreciate that a lot. All right. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and end this video. And I hope you all have a good one. And I will reconnect with you all later. So later on, I might come back and do a topic on another video, but it's going to go into the underground world. So when I say the underground world, I'm talking about the underground world, if you know what I mean. The world of the underdogs. But I'll keep y'all posted. All right. But until then, y'all have a good one and take it easy. So peace. All right. Thank you.